Hey moms, welcome. It's day 2 of the Empowerment Masterclass series. Whoop whoop. Super excited that you are joining me for this one. This is gonna be a good one because we are talking about boundaries. This one topic, I literally can talk about this all day long, and I think I get excited talking about this topic because I struggled with this so much in my own life, and I really never had someone, no one came to me like when I was a teen girl and sat me down and talked about boundaries and what they were and why they were important. I didn't learn this for myself until my 30s, but it was really something that I struggled with in a lot of my relationships, and it could have changed so much had I learned this earlier. So this is why I'm jazzed up to talk about this topic with you. And it's also important not just for your daughter or daughters, but also for you moms, because a lot of adults are also struggling with having like clear, healthy boundaries. So this is also for you as well. And so, first thing I want to talk about is, and I have some notes here because there's like a lot of information that I want to cover and I don't want to miss anything. So first of all, boundaries can really make or break a relationship. And when we don't have clear boundaries in a relationship, this is going to cause a breakdown in the relationship. When I talk about relationships, I'm talking about it could be different relationships, romantic relationships, it could be friendships, it could be like family relationships, right? Any of those are all different kinds of relationships. But so I want to define what a boundary is, okay? So a boundary is a demonstration of self-respect and self-worth, okay? Now also, it is a structure or a request that you put into place to define or limit or exclude behavior, people, or experiences that are not in alignment with who you are, what you need or want, or what you expect. Yes, I know that was a long definition. But basically, it's like boundaries keep us safe, okay? Now, boundaries make other people aware of what we expect and what we will accept, tolerate, and accommodate or allow, okay? Those 4 things are super important. And so, it's also boundaries, it's a way for us to communicate with others that we have self-worth, that we have self-value, that we have self-respect, okay? So, and I think it's really important that we all know, that your daughter knows, that you know where someone else ends and we begin. And, because, back in the day, I used to attract a lot of friends that were like drama, right? Drama, or like crazy. And because I had no boundaries, like their stuff kind of seeped into my own life. And then I had to deal with all of that, right? No boundaries, okay? So it's really important. Another example is like if your daughter is in a relationship and she's got no boundaries with whomever she's dating, and they're together 24/7 and they do everything together and they're on the phone all the time, and it's like no boundaries, right? Where does the other person end and where does she begin? And people oftentimes get lost in the other person that they're with. It's like, no, I'm an individual person. I am separate from you. You are separate from me, right? But we don't see that when we don't have boundaries. So it's really important that we're clear and aware of that. And another important thing to talk about is, when we have a positive sense of self, right? When we, when we have done some work on ourselves, and when we have a higher sort of, when we have a higher self-esteem, then we get that it helps us to say, no, this behavior doesn't serve me. No, you don't get to talk to me like that. No, this doesn't feel good to me, right? When we have a positive sense of self, we are able to say those things to somebody else without fear that they're not going to like us, without the fear that they're going to reject us, without the fear that they're going to get mad at us, right? Because it's not about any of that. It's about our self-respect. This is why boundaries is so important. And I want all of you and your daughters to have it. So the first thing that you can do to help your daughter with boundaries is you can model what it looks like to have healthy boundaries. And if you don't know what it looks like, that's okay. We're going to talk about it. Okay? But really, your daughter is learning so much from you. So you can start helping her with this by you having some healthy boundaries. Okay? So let's get into, I want to talk about this. You know, it is impossible to have healthy relationships if you don't have clear, healthy boundaries, right? It's everything. It's so important. So here's something else that I want to talk about. It's not up to anyone else but you to decide what works for you. Because what works for you may be very different than what works for me. I cannot tell you what your boundaries should or shouldn't be. I cannot tell your daughter what her boundaries should or shouldn't be. We all have to figure that out for ourselves, okay? And we are also the only one who that gets to determine how people speak to us, okay? Because we get to say what is acceptable and what is no longer acceptable. If someone is disrespecting me, then I get to say, no, I don't allow for you to speak to me this way. Boundaries, right? It's what we allow. It's what we put up with. It's what we settle for. And this is why it's so important, again, going back to the positive sense of self. Because when we don't have enough self-respect for ourselves, then we allow other people to come into our lives and disrespect us. That's just how it is. So it's really important. So it's important also, in order to understand boundaries, we have to understand why we need them in the first place, okay? So there are a couple of steps that you and your daughter need to learn in order to create having healthy boundaries. But one thing that I want you to do before we get into the steps is I want you to make a list, moms. And if your daughter is interested in this, I would also love for her to make a list as well. And on the list, I want you to write all of the things and all of the people that no longer feel acceptable to you. Who are the people in your life that are not treating you properly? Write them down. Who are the people in your life that you've been holding a lot of stuff in because you don't want to upset them and you don't want to hurt their feelings? So you just hold it all inside. Write that down right now, okay? You can pause this and then unpause and then come back, or you can just do this after. But I want you to make that list, and if your daughter is interested in doing it as well, I think it would be really good. Because who is your daughter hanging out with at school, right? Who are her friends? If she's in a relationship, how is she being treated in the relationship? What is she no longer feeling like this is acceptable behavior towards me? This is what I am no longer allowing. That's my dog snorting. So one of the things also, it's really important, is that you and your daughter, you got to learn how to say no. Okay? A lot of us are people pleasers. A lot of us don't want to hurt someone else's feelings. And so we don't speak up for ourselves. We don't say no when we want to, right? What if your daughter is dating someone? What if she's in a relationship and he wants to go further? And she doesn't want to, but she doesn't have any boundaries in place. She doesn't want to hurt his feelings. She's a people pleaser, so what's going to happen? Right? Is she going to do something that she later regrets? I know you do not want that for your daughter. This is, again, why not only going back to boundaries and creating them, but why it's so important, for your daughter to work on her self-esteem. Because your self-esteem, you have to have a positive sense of self for you to even feel like you are worthy enough to express how you want someone to treat you, how you want someone to behave around you. If you don't have a positive sense of self, you're not going to be able to do these things. You're not going to be able to tell someone that how you are treating me is no longer acceptable. Okay? So there's a couple of things that you can do, moms, and your daughter can do to create a personal boundary. Step number one, and you can write this down. Define your boundary. What is your boundary? You've got to define it. You've got to be really clear on what your boundary is. And you can do that now. You can pause this if you want, or you can do this after. Okay? Step number 2. It's not enough just to define your boundary. You've got to announce it. Okay? People have to know about your boundaries. You just can't keep it in here. You have to state your boundaries. Here's something that's going to happen. Some people might not like your boundaries. Is that your problem? No, it's not your problem. Some people didn't like my boundaries when I started saying them. Some people didn't understand my boundaries. They didn't agree with my boundaries. They were like, they just don't get them, right? That's okay, right? Because I'm not a people pleaser anymore. It's okay if somebody doesn't like your boundaries, because here's the deal. Some people won't. If you've been a certain way for the majority of your life, or for your daughter, if she's been a certain way, and then she changes it up and she, puts these boundaries in place, some people aren't going to like them. But guess what? That is not your problem, mom, or that is not your daughter's problem. And for me, it wasn't my problem if someone didn't like my boundaries, right? What was more important was, who cares if they don't like it, but are they honoring my boundary, right? Are they respectful of my boundary? That is the most important thing. So number 3, once you've announced your boundaries, you've got to create consequences for when people violate your boundary, right? So for instance, if your daughter is in a relationship, like a romantic relationship, and what if he suddenly is like emotionally abusive? What if he yells at her? What if he starts disrespecting her? Does she have any boundaries to stop this? To tell him that this behavior is not acceptable and I will not allow for you to treat me in this way any longer? Has she ever stated that? A lot of girls or women or adults, whomever, that get into abusive relationships, whether it's physical, mental, emotional abuse, they do not have boundaries. Because the first time that something happens, that's when they need to either, if they haven't already announced their boundaries, they've got to do it. And if the person doesn't honor that, then they need to leave, right? My nose itches. Okay? So this is really important. So, and I'm not saying like if your daughter, God forbid, is ever in an abusive relationship, if she were to ever be hit, then that's not oh, he didn't know, let me give him another chance. One time, that's it. She needs to get out of that relationship right away, right? But it's all about being clear. Your daughter has to be clear in who she is, right? Positive sense of self, what she allows. How is she allowing people to treat her? It goes back to the relationship that she has with herself. That is why everything is tied back to self-esteem, right? Because the relationship that your daughter is having with herself is like the most important relationship that she will ever have in her entire life. It is. So when she treats herself with respect, then she will not put up with other people disrespecting her. But when she's not respecting herself, when she's not loving herself, it's like an open door for other people to not respect her either. That's why this conversation is so important. I mean, I could go on and talk for hours about boundaries, but I'm not going to because we all have busy lives, right? And so I really hope that this is, that you're understanding this, that this is resonating for you, that you're able to apply this in your life, and that your daughter hopefully is able to apply this in her life as well. Because here's something that I want you all to get. Your feelings, your needs, what you want matters, right? Same with your daughter. Her feelings, her needs, her wants, they matter as well. And what she wants and what she needs is more important than, if she's in a relationship and what he wants and what he needs, right? She's got to look out for herself first. She's got to make herself a priority. That is key. So I hope my dog isn't about to bark. There's some people outside. I'm holding her collar so she doesn't start barking. But anyways, I'm so happy that you joined me for the day 2 of the Empowerment Masterclass series, all about boundaries. And stay tuned because we still have day 3 coming your way. And I'm just sending you all so much love. Feel free if you want to email me, if you want to reach out to me and let me know, like, how did this resonate for you? What did this bring up for you? Are you finding that, like, you can set some, healthy boundaries in your life? I'd love to hear from you. You can send me an email and I'll be happy to, respond to each and every one of you. But for now, I'm just sending you so much love. Mwah, and have a wonderful day. Bye.